Welcome to Sinister Stories, where the shadows move, the rules matter, and what you don't see is sometimes the scariest part. If you love a good scare, stick around, because once you hear these stories, you'll never sleep the same way again. Subscribe, if you dare. I took the job at Cloud9 Vape and Smoke because it was easy. 3 hours a night, 9 p.m. to midnight, and all I had to do was ring people up, pretend I cared about their vape flavor choices, and ignore the sketchy dudes buying Kratom at 11:45 p.m. Easy money. It was a chill gig. I'd lean against the counter, scrolling through my phone, occasionally looking up to ID some 19-year-old buying a disposable in the worst flavor imaginable. Watermelon bubblegum? Dude, are you 5? But everything changed when the shipment came in. At around 10 p.m., I was unpacking a box of new disposables, some brand I'd never heard of called Void Mist. The box was weirdly dusty, like it had been sitting in the back of a warehouse for years. I reached up to put it on the top shelf when, thwap. Something small and brittle smacked me on the head and fluttered to the ground. I looked down. It was an old yellowed piece of paper. Looked like it had been tucked away up there for a long time. The edges were burned, like someone had tried to destroy it. I picked it up and read the shaky, ink-stained words. Rules for the night shift. You must follow them. If you break one, you will not leave. If a man in a trench coat asks for the black mist, say you're out. No matter what. If you see smoke forming near the back of the store but no one's vaping, do not look directly at it. At exactly 10:42 p.m., the security cameras will glitch. If you see yourself on the screen moving differently than you are, leave immediately. If an old man with a raspy voice asks for help choosing a vape flavor, he is not human. He will try to pull you into another realm. Do not make eye contact. At 11:59 p.m., the closed sign will flip on its own. Make sure you are outside before it happens. If not, you're staying forever. I let out a short laugh. Bro? What is this? Some kind of prank? I looked around. The store was dead empty. The security cameras buzzed softly overhead. The only sound was the low hum of the vape display fridge. This had to be a joke. Maybe the last guy who worked here wrote it to mess with the new hires. I was about to crumple it up and toss it when the bell above the door jingled. A customer. I stuffed the note into my pocket and looked up. A tall man in a long, black trench coat stepped inside. He walked straight to the counter without looking around. His face was weird. Too pale. Too smooth. Like he'd been airbrushed in real life. Then he spoke, his voice slow and unnatural. Do you have the black mist? I froze. The first rule on the list. If a man in a trench coat asks for the black mist, say you're out, no matter what. I swallowed hard and forced a casual shrug. Nah, man. We're out. The man didn't react, didn't blink, just stood there, staring at me. His eyes were off. Not just weird. Wrong. Like the pupils were stretched too tall, like some kind of cat or lizard. Are you sure? His voice was dry, like wind blowing through dead leaves. Yeah, bro, I said, shifting uncomfortably. Never even heard of it. His lips curled into a too-wide grin. Shame, he said. Then he turned, walking slowly toward the exit. The bell above the door jingled. He was gone. I let out a shaky breath and laughed nervously. What the hell was that? The store was empty again, just me and the soft hum of the vape fridges. I pulled the note out of my pocket and stared at the rules. The first one had been real. What about the others? I glanced at the security cameras. 10:41 p.m. The third rule flashed in my mind. At exactly 10:42 p.m., the security cameras will glitch. If you see yourself on the screen moving differently than you are, leave immediately. I turned to look at the monitor above the counter. The cameras showed 4 angles of the store, one behind the register, one by the door, one by the Kratom display, and one in the storage room. Nothing weird. The clock ticked over. 10:42 p.m. The screen flickered. Static. for just a second. Then it came back. I was still standing behind the counter. Same spot, same stance. But on the camera, I wasn't alone. There was a man standing behind me. Right behind me. My breath hitched. I didn't move. But the me in the camera? He did. My screen self tilted his head, staring straight into the camera, grinning. I spun around. Nothing. No one was there. I snapped my eyes back to the screen. My camera self was still staring. But now his grin was wider. Unnaturally wide. And then slowly, he raised his hand and waved at me. I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't even clock out. I just sprinted out the door into the cold night air, my heart slamming against my ribs. The store was silent. The open sign buzzed in the window. I stood outside, panting, staring at the place I had been totally fine working in just an hour ago. Then, from inside, the security camera screen flickered again. And on the monitor, my reflection was still there. Still standing behind the counter. Still waving. I stood outside, breath fogging up in the cold night air, staring through the glass. Inside, my not-me reflection was still behind the counter, still grinning, still waving. Nope. Hell nope. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. I was 1 second away from calling my manager and quitting over text when... Jingle. The bell over the vape shop door rang. Someone was inside. I whipped my head up. A man stood at the counter. Not a normal man. He was old, hunched over, wearing a ragged hoodie. His skin was gray, like cigarette ash. He had dark, sunken eyes, and his mouth was twisted into an unnatural grin. My stomach dropped. I pulled out the rules and scanned the list. Rule number 4. If an old man with a raspy voice asks for help choosing a vape flavor, he is not human. He will try to pull you into another realm. Do not make eye contact. I clamped my jaw shut and took a slow, deep breath. The old man's head twitched toward the door. I swear to God, I could feel his eyes on me. And then, his mouth moved. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I could see what he was saying. Can you help me pick a flavor? Nope. 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 I turned on my heels and booked it to my car. Screw this job. Screw this store. Screw vapes. I fumbled my keys out of my pocket, slammed the door shut, and jammed them into the ignition. I looked up. The old man was outside now, standing in the parking lot. Not walking, not moving. Just there, watching me. His grin stretched wider, and then, slowly, he lifted one hand and beckoned. I jammed the gas pedal. Tires screeched. I flew out of the parking lot, taking the corner so fast my rear bumper nearly clipped the curb. I didn't stop, not until I was miles away. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour McDonald's, hands shaking, heart pounding. What the hell just happened? That thing in the store, the security camera version of me, was still in there. That old man had tried to pull me into... where? And what the hell was the black mist? I pulled out my phone and did the only logical thing. I Googled it. Nothing. No vape brand, no weird urban legends, no creepy Reddit stories. Whatever was happening in that store, it wasn't normal. I glanced at my phone screen. 11:57 p.m. 2 minutes until closing. And then, I remembered the last rule. At 11:59 p.m., the closed sign will flip on its own. Make sure you are outside before it happens. If not, you're staying forever. I shuddered. Guess I wouldn't be finding out what happened at midnight, because I sure as hell wasn't going back. I sat in the McDonald's parking lot, hands shaking around a lukewarm McFlurry. I needed answers. What the hell was going on in that vape shop? Who wrote the rules? And more importantly, was I fired now? I pulled out my phone. 11:58 p.m. 1 minute until the final rule came into play. At 11:59 p.m., the closed sign will flip on its own. Make sure you are outside before it happens. If not, you're staying forever. I wasn't there to see it happen, but just thinking about it made my skin crawl. My thumb hovered over my manager's contact. I needed to tell him something. Maybe fake an excuse? Hey bro, got food poisoning, can't finish shift? I sighed. He wouldn't believe me. Maybe I should just quit. I had the text half-typed when my screen glitched, just for a second, like a static flicker. A notification popped up. New message from unknown number. I frowned. Weird. I opened it. It was just 2 words. You left. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, a cold sweat forming on my back. Before I could react, another text popped up. You weren't supposed to leave. My heart started racing. I typed back, hands shaking. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, they stopped. Then another message. Check your back seat. I froze. I didn't want to turn around. Didn't want to see, but I could feel it. Something was there. A shape. A shadow. I clenched my jaw, forced myself to move. Just a little. Just enough to tilt the rearview mirror. And that's when I saw it. The old man, sitting in my back seat, grinning. Before I could scream, he lunged. I woke up somewhere else. Not in my car, not in McDonald's. I was back in the vape shop, behind the counter. The store was dark, except for the glow of the security cameras. I looked up at the screen, and there I was, grinning, waving. But it wasn't me. And then, in the reflection, the closed sign flipped. 11:59 p.m. I never made it out. The closed sign flipped on its own. The store lights flickered, buzzing low and sickly, casting long, unnatural shadows. I wasn't supposed to be here. I turned in slow motion toward the glass door. I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. Locked. No, no, no. I banged my fists against it hard enough to rattle the frame. The parking lot outside was empty. The streetlights looked wrong, too dim, too far away, like they were disappearing into nothingness. I spun back toward the store. The shelves stretched taller, longer. The vape displays blinked with colors that didn't exist. And then, the old man stepped forward from the shadows. His face wasn't right. His eyes sank too deep. His mouth curled into a grin too wide. His voice rasped. You're staying. I stumbled backward, knocking over a shelf of disposable vapes. Hell no! I turned and froze. Because the security screen behind the counter, it was showing something new, something worse. The camera feed wasn't the vape shop anymore. It showed a void. A black, endless nothingness stretching on forever. And in the center, a door. A single rusted door, standing in the void with nothing around it. And then, it opened, and something moved inside. Something big. Something coming. I stumbled back, my breath ragged. The old man laughed, his fingers stretched unnaturally long as he reached for me. You're one of us now. No, I'm not. I grabbed the first thing I could find, a full box of Void Mist vapes, and hurled it at his face. It hit him dead on. The moment it did, he screamed. Not a normal scream, a distorted inhuman shriek, like static and radio feedback twisting together. His body convulsed, glitching. The floor beneath me shifted. The entire store warped, stretched, bent, and then I woke up. I gasped, choking on air. I was sitting in my car, outside the vape shop. The McDonald's bag was still in my lap. My McFlurry had melted. The shop was dark, closed. I looked at my phone. 12:01 a.m. I wasn't inside. I wasn't trapped. I was free? I sat there, staring at the store, afraid to move. And then, my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Don't come back. I didn't need to be told twice. I put my car in drive and peeled out of that parking lot so fast I almost jumped a curb. I didn't quit. I didn't text my manager. I just never showed up again. Let them figure it out. A week later, I drove past the store. The sign was still there. The lights were still on. It looked normal, like none of it had ever happened. But when I glanced at the now hiring sign in the window, I noticed something. A new rule was written at the bottom in small, shaky letters. If you hear someone pounding on the front door after closing, ignore it. It's just me, trying to get out.